talking about some of the major developments in the field of vaccination and how vaccination has created a inequality across the globe. So in the first section that we would understand today is the vaccine apartheid. Now the medical officer at WHO says that as long as a certain section of the population remains unvaccinated, there are significant chances that more virulent strains of COVID-19 could come, and this mutations would ultimately be affecting the globe. So if even one country is not vaccinated, then the mutations that are produced at that source create a risk for the complete world. So it becomes very important to vaccinate the whole of the population. However, as per the John Hopkins University report on 8th by 8th April 2021, only 711 million people across the globe have been vaccinated. In all, we say there are around 7.9 billion people on earth. That means less than 2% of the population is vaccinated as of now. South Africa has witnessed a important variant, and that is 501YV2. Now this variant was first discovered in the Eastern Cape province of South Africa, and this variant shows that there are numerous mutations in the spike protein. That means even the mRNA vaccine discovered by Pfizer and Moderna does not seem to work. It is 50% more transmissible and led to the second wave in South Africa in the month of December. Africa has now been witnessing the second wave, but less than 2% of the total vaccination doses have been administered in the regions of Africa. The confirmed cases have jumped significantly only in a period of 1 month by more than 14,000 people per million. So nearly 14,000 per million people per million have been added in terms of new confirmed cases in Africa. 50 countries of the 54 countries in Africa have reported the cases of community transmission, and we have seen that the deaths have significantly increased from 85 per million to 368 per million. So all of those have been some of the significant cases that we need to understand. Now, there have been reasons cited for low spread in Africa. What have been the reasons attributed to the low spread? The first reason that has been explained is the low seeding rate. The low seeding rate means the less number of new variants or new cases being introduced to the region because the low volume of air travel is seen. The second important reason is mitigations have been effective because Africa had already dealt with cases of Ebola, and therefore mitigation measures have been successful. The third important concept is young population. Nearly 40% of the Africa has a population less than 14 years. So a significantly young population that lies in Africa is another reason because of which we say that the cases of spread in Africa are significantly less. The next important reason is there have been cross-reactive viruses. That means people had been previously exposed to similar viruses as COVID-19. So low seeding rate, where we say there are low number of corona cases introduced to the country or the continent, the higher mitigation as it was seen in Ebola, younger population, 40% of the population less than 14 years of age, and cross-reactive viruses because of a prior exposure to a similar coronavirus. Also, there is one important finding that has come up recently, and that is Neanderthals is one of the genes that have been seen in the European population, and this gene is seen to be very sensitive against RNA virus. However, Africa is the only continent that does not have any gene trace from Neanderthals. That means the people of Africa relatively have lesser impact because of the RNA virus that can cause damage. The next important thing that we need to understand is the cultural reasons in Africa. Because of the cultural reasons, as soon as the people retire, they move back to villages where the surroundings are much more open and clearer, and therefore the chances of transmission in the old population is less. The roads and the infrastructure is not well developed, so the minute and the interior areas of Africa are relatively less affected. And the last but not the least is the prevalence of comorbid diseases like diabetes. Worldwide, we say there is 8.4 cases that are seen, in contrast to only 3.9 cases that are seen in Africa. So Africa definitely has low prevalence for diseases like diabetes. Now these are the regions which are most affected. So if we see, in the north you have Tunisia and Libya, and south mainly the Botswana, Namibia, South Africa as the major areas where highest and most proportions of COVID-19 diseases have been seen. And then we have the interior of the Africa, which is in the form of Western Sahara, Niger, Congo Republic, Benin, and Burundi, Tanzania as the regions which are least affected by COVID-19 cases. The positivity rate has remained high, specifically during the cold months of May and June. So lying in the south hemisphere, the cold months are in the month of May and June, and the positivity rate is much higher in contrast to the global positivity rate. Now, if we talk about the vaccine distribution, the facts are really astonishing. The thing is that 16% of the population has access to 60% of the vaccines, and a country like Africa need to have a huge amount of vaccination drive but has only 2% of the global vaccination that is available to the continent of Africa. Also, WHO says that 70% of the population, if given vaccine, could lead to herd immunity. Herd immunity simply means the probability of getting transmission or infection getting transmitted from one person to another. So let's say I create this chain and there is one person creating another two person. Now if this one person is vaccinated, this chain breaks here. So this person is the only person who can take the chain forward, and therefore if this 70% threshold is reached, that means herd immunity would come. There would be no further transmissions from one person to another person. Studies have shown that around 2,70,000 healthcare workers in the continent of Africa have been inoculated, and these people contribute to less than 0.5% of the total population in Africa. And Johnson & Johnson is one of the leading companies that has been providing a single shot vaccination which is now approved by WHO for emergency use. However, of recent, United States has brought a ban to Johnson & Johnson for the cases of blood clotting, and the emergency use authorization have been taken back. The next is, if we focus on to the infrastructure and the socio-economic scenario in Africa, we have seen that of 10,000 people, there are only 2 physicians. On 10,000 people, there are only 10 nurses, 8 hospital beds that are present. That means the healthcare infrastructure is drastically poor in the continent of Africa. Also, there have been more than 90% of the population which does not have any social protection, or they fall under labor program, and this has created a significant employment loss, significant job security and social security. Ghana was the first country to report the UK variant in Africa, and as part of the COVAX, which is the global facility for vaccination, India has been one of the partners to it, has aimed to immunize nearly 20% of the population by 2021. So to vaccinate the people, supply chain should be very, very smooth, covering the vast population. All the resources should be well met, and this practically becomes a challenge in a region like Africa. Africa has 10 plants that manufacture vaccinations, and of which these 10 lie only in 5 countries. Those are Egypt, Morocco, Tunisia, South Africa and Senegal. Now these are only 5 nations of the 54 nations in Africa that have the capability to produce vaccines, and setting up a pharmaceutical manufacturing plant in Africa has been expensive and moreover we can say impractical, because it is one of the home to the most poor nations in the world. Also, there have been pharma care companies like Aspen that have been one of the largest generic medicine producers in the continent and have been producing more than 300 million doses of Johnson & Johnson vaccination for the region of South Africa. Now, if we focus on to the sustainable development goals that have been given, we have seen a significant decline, and Africa continent in whole has seen a highest recession in the last 25 years. The inflation has soared significantly. If we talk about each of the goals, we have the statistics that is there. But the idea is, let's talk about no poverty, goal 1. We have seen that nearly 23 million people would be pushed into the category of extremely poor people. Similarly, 288 million learners would become out of school due to closure of school sessions. There would be food insecurity for nearly 73 million African people, and so on and so forth. So all the 17 goals that were given for Africa have seen very weak targets that could be achieved. The GDP has significantly contracted by nearly 2.6%. It is further to push as many as 34 million people in the category of extreme poverty. The Oxfam, which is an international non-profit organization, predicts that the economic impacts that Africa has received because of this pandemic could take Africa back by nearly 30 years. So there has to be a significant call that needs to be taken immediately on the global perspective in order to remove this vaccine apartheid. The next is in India under MNREGA, which is the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Program, which guarantees minimum 100 days of employment out of the 365 days for the people in most of the works which is focused to either water management, irrigation sources, water storage, infrastructural development, leveling of the land or basic afforestation practices. We have seen that even after 15 years of the implementation of MNREGA scheme, the results have not been satisfactory. The works that have been done which is related to infrastructure, water management, that could have been best suited for that region, but just to utilize the manpower and to provide them 100 days of minimum guaranteed employment, the way under which the projects have come up has not been a sustainable solution. For example, contour bunding could be one of the effective methods in certain areas. In hilly areas, small storage could be another good method, but those methods have not been implemented on a regional basis, we can say, and therefore just putting the labor for the sake of completing 100 days of minimum employment has not been a practical solution. Nepal has recently witnessed worst of the forest fires. On 27th March 2021, Nepal, mainly the regions of Kathmandu, have witnessed a significantly declining air quality of 421, which shows that the air quality has been deteriorating. Now, what has been the reason? First, vehicular exhaust, as we all know. The next is smoke from the coal-fired fields, that is industries. Then we also have a lot of burning of the forest. Also, India the regions from the south and the southwest parts of India have added to the population load, and this has created significant rising scenes of forest fire in the regions of Nepal. Nepal, also due to climate change, has seen 25% less rainfall as usual, and most of the forest fires were seen between the months from November to June in Nepal. The proportion in which the forest fires have been growing is nearly 14 times. So 14 times increase in the similar period last year to this year has shown that how forests and conservation of forest needs an immediate attention. The next is deep sea mining. Deep sea mining, why it is so important? When we talk about deep sea mining, there are numerous manganese nodules that are found beneath the earth, beneath the ocean surface, and these have deposits of cobalt, deposits of manganese, nickel, copper, which is present within those nodules. So seabed nodules are sourced to various rare earth metals. Now these rare earth minerals or elements are used where they are used with renewable power energies, for example solar power, generation of chips, so semiconductor industry. Those are some of the regions where deep sea mining could actually prove to be boon. However, companies like Google, BMW, Volvo, Samsung have said no to deep sea mining because this could create a significant threat to the marine ecosystem, and therefore the countries have strictly prohibited any use of rare earth metals or rare earth elements from obtained from deep sea mining. Norway is one of the countries that has given license for the mining that is ought to give license by 2023. India is waiting for approval from International Seabed Authority, which regulates the mineral related activities on the international waters. The next important development is SCOPEX program. SCOPEX is a stratospheric controlled perturbation experiment. Now this is an experiment done by students from Harvard University, and the idea is to use solar geoengineering techniques to inject sunlight reflecting aerosols such as sulfur dioxide into the upper layers of the atmosphere. Now when sulfur dioxide is introduced in the upper layers of the atmosphere, the sun's impact onto the earth would be significantly minimized, and this could be beneficial for earth for controlling the climate change. However, there have been numerous debates that this would help the industries that are continuing to exhaust sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere, give them a boost, because they would have a good feeling that now under the SCOPEX program all the sulfur dioxide would be captured and would be used to minimize the impact on the earth through solar geoengineering techniques, and these companies would continue emitting the sulfur dioxide. So therefore, this is one of the critiques that have been mentioned, but definitely it is an effort to combat the issue of climate change, and countries have been investing hundreds and thousands of dollars in this program for more research further. Now coming on to some of the other important news, we have seen that many of the species like monkeys, cows have been consuming anthropogenic food waste, and these includes definitely plastics. So when they ingest plastic, this causes stomach ulcers, disruptions in their digestive system, and premature death of certain species, and therefore curbing the single-use plastic becomes an important challenge. So single-use plastic is one of the first things that we have covered here. The next is the ethanol production policy. Ethanol production policy has been released by Bihar recently under the National Biofuel Policy, and this allows extraction of ethanol from your favorite maize, and this has been given under the investment incentives. The next is India is now planning to establish its floating solar power project. This we have already covered in our map location class, and that is the Ramagundam thermal power project. Ramagundam thermal power project has been established in the region of Telangana, and once functional, this is the first floating solar plant in India with a capacity of more than 100 megawatts that would be established. 64% of the agricultural land globally gets onto the risk of pollution and also pesticides. The major countries which would witness this are China, Japan, Malaysia and Philippines. The last important news snippet that we need to cover is the Arctic lightning. Now, Arctic lightning is an interesting phenomena where we have seen lightning strokes at an altitude of more than 65 degrees north, and the percentage have grown from 0.2 to 0.6%. That means significantly more lightning strokes have been seen in the regions of northern Siberia, attributed to rising temperature and mainly seen from in the months of June, July and August, the summer months. This occurs how? So when the ice crystals inside the clouds collide, these collide and produce the electric charge, and as a result warmer air rises through the cooler atmosphere, creating the lightning strokes. So therefore lightning strokes in the Arctic region has been a recent phenomena. The number have increased more than 10 folds from 18,000 in 2010 to more than 1,50,000 in 2020. So 10-fold increase has been seen. India and poverty. So we are talking about a country of mass poverty, as in the past, in the years dated back nearly in 1960s and 70s. The idea is the Pew Research Center, which has worked with World Bank, has brought in a report that the number of poor people in India who have an income of less than $2, that is less than 160 to 170 rupees with them on a daily basis, have doubled during the recession period, and we have seen a jump from 60 million poor to 134 million poor people in India who do not even earn the basic livelihood at rupees 160 to 180 in a day, and therefore this pandemic has further enhanced this trap. We have seen that this poverty is ought to further increase. The multi-dimensional poverty index, MDPI, that we see is depicting that India has nearly 271 million poor people that are seen in the country. After 2011, India has not brought any count for the number of poor that exist in India. However, as per the United Nations estimate in 2019, the population of poor people in India on the criteria of earning less than $2 a day was 364 million, which accounts for 28% of the total population in India. So nearly 1/3 of the population, we could say, lies below the poverty levels, and the new population which have been added because of the pandemic is not part of this so far. So we can assume the huge amount of poverty and the scenarios that have worsened in the recent years in India. The next is a very interesting talk about broad back. Now, broad back is an experiment. Now, this experiment has been done in the regions of Hertfordshire. Hertfordshire lies in the regions of South England, and the study was done on an area of around 4 to 5 hectares that was seen, and this region has been under study since last 178 years. The idea is the land there has been studied for agriculture and the best suitable agriculture. So it has been divided into 19 strips of 6 meter wide and 300 meter long, and different crop combinations, organic, inorganic, with farm manure, without farm manure, have been tried. We have seen that the best combinations have been seen in the crop patterns if the crops have been grown if the crops have been grown on rotation basis with the organic or the farmyard manure. The crops that have grown consistently have not shown good results. They have shown a result which you can see lies onto the lower edge. However, if there has been a crop rotation with organic fertilizer, it has increased the proportion of yield in the crop. Now, there are few interesting facts that we need to understand. First is the yield of the crop is better if there is 2 years of gap that is given. This 2 years of gap minimizes the impact of pesticides and the diseases that have been seen in the crop, in the land. The next important thing is the impact of organic fertilizers on methane emissions. So, if inorganic fertilizers are being used, the proportion of methane emissions into the atmosphere significantly increases. However, with organic use of fertilizers, this methane, actually the amount that is being exhausted or released into the atmosphere significantly reduces. Nitrogen, which is considered as a synthetic fertilizer or inorganic fertilizer, ranges from N1 to N6. The strength of N1 to N6 varies in terms of nitrogen, and it is believed that if the soil is enriched with nitrogen, the capability to hold the best results or the best yield decreases, and this is also responsible for poor growth in the regions of the area where the crop is being grown with inorganic fertilizers. So this study, which comprises of the organic versus inorganic, rotation versus a continuous crop pattern that is grown, shows how improvements can be made for increasing the yield. Also, how carbon, the organic carbon in the topsoil is best suitable for better yield and better production. The next is India has witnessed a significant scenes with temperature changes. With the ENSO's oscillations, we have cold La Nina and warm El Nino. Now, what is La Nina, El Nino? We have already covered in our class on ENSO, a very important topic. Every time questions have been asked on this. Now, what you can cover that separately. Now, what is important as per the studies here is, we have seen early flowering. So all the fruits and vegetables that used to ripe somewhere in the months of April and May have seen a ripening in the months of March. For example, mango cultivation, peaches, almonds, all of those have seen early flowering. The reason being prolonged exposure to light and heat, and India has witnessed the third warmest March month in the last 121 years. That means the climate has been drastically changing, and something must be brought in order to curtail this situation. Between 1900 to 1980s, we have witnessed only 18 La Nina years. However, we have seen 7 La Nina years between the period after 1980s till 2020. So, last 40 years we have seen 7 El Nina. However, in contrast to that, the previous period witnessed 18 La Nina. That means we are now seeing more and more cases with reduced and extreme weather changes. Now, talking about vaccination. Vaccination, as we said, is very important. If you look onto the graph that we have provided, you can see countries like US, UK, regions of Europe have seen the black line shows the country's adult population and the circle shows the doses that have been ordered. So, the population is less in contrast to doses in the developed nations. However, the reverse situation exists in India and the less developed nations of the world. So, vaccination, how these could be brought, becomes an important challenge. Now, India is the producer for 2 important vaccines, which is Covishield and Covaxin. Covaxin by Bharat Biotech and Covishield produced by Serum Institute. The original one is the AstraZeneca, and that has been devised originally by the Oxford University students and later given to AstraZeneca, and has been manufactured by Serum Institute of India in Pune, which is one of the largest producers of vaccines globally. Now, Bharat Biotech and Serum Institutes are the two organizations or the two private entities producing vaccination in India. However, recently the Russian vaccine is Sputnik has been given emergency use approval, and Dr. Reddy's lab has been given permissions to develop Sputnik in India. We have seen that countries have tried to make the vaccines under public sector regime. In India, so far we have witnessed the vaccination is being produced by the private sector. It is under the PPP model, that is the public-private partnership model, when it comes to distribution. But the manufacturing is with the private sector. If this comes with the public sector, the cost could be reduced or could go down nearly 250 times. So there could be significant reduction in the cost for the vaccination, and this could be brought for the masses at a very reasonable price. And sometimes there is a constant debate, why can't these vaccinations could be brought at a price at which generic medicines are available. Under Vaccine Med 3 initiative, India has been providing more than 60 million doses to countries like UK, Brazil, Morocco, Bangladesh, and so on. Now, what is important to understand is country like Cuba has been creating vaccines under its public enterprise model. Russia and China have been creating vaccines under public sector. Canada is trying to create most of the vaccines under domestic sector. So all of these nations are focusing on creation of vaccination in public sector because this could significantly reduce the cost. Now, India is one of the countries that is known to have 7 PSUs who manufacture vaccines in India. These are the Central Research Institute, Himachal Pradesh, the BCG Vaccination Laboratory, the Pasteur Institute, HLL Biotech, Bharat Immunologicals, Hefkins, and Human Biological Institute in Telangana. All of these institutes, we would come back to these in a while, but the idea is when we have so many PSUs which are creating or have been authorized for vaccine manufacturing, why they have not come with the vaccine for COVID-19. Now, if we trace the history, in 2008, Union government called off the manufacturing of 3 institutes, the CRI, BCGVL, and PII, which is the Pasteur Institute of India, and these were closed under the Drugs and the Cosmetic Act 1945. However, later in 2012, they were reopened for continuation for creation of tetanus toxoids, and this was under the interest petition which was filed in the High Court. However, we have seen that the installed capacity is significantly higher. For example, Pasteur Institute of India has an installed capacity of creating 60 million doses per year for a combination of DPT vaccine. However, 55 million have not been created, or we could say not even a single dose was created after 2016. So even these PSUs are in existence. In real terms, we do not have seen any installed capacity or any installed production that has come from these institutions. Now here we have a quick list of the institution and the vaccine they produce. For example, the Bharat Immunologicals in Bulandshahr produces the oral polio vaccine. The Human Biological Institution produces the rabies, DPT, and the tetanus toxoid vaccine primarily. So they fall under which institute? So for example, Human Biologicals falls under National Dairy Development Board, and so on and so forth. So this complete list is important. Now in India, if we really need to provide vaccination to each and every citizen of the country, we need to strengthen this public sector, and expertise and skilled human resource which is present at these institutes could further support and strengthen our systems. We have seen that under the National Vaccination Policy 2011, we encourage public-private partnership model, the PPP model as it is called. And in the 2017 National Health Policy, we have focused on building more public management units for healthy competition, better vaccine supply, but this has not been practically witnessed. We have seen a significant crisis in the generation of the vaccination. As we said, making vaccines generic becomes important. The demand at WTO for disclosing the IPs or the intellectual property rights for the vaccine, the development of the vaccine, till the pandemic is over should be made, and this concern has been raised by many experts. However, the developers of these vaccines believe that they do not want their ideas or innovation to dilute, and therefore they are not open to the idea that the intellectual property rights of creation of these vaccines should be released publicly till the pandemic is over. If that happens, this would see a significant blow to the pharma industries. So the regulatory process for the second generation vaccine becomes important, and definitely it's a big question as of now whether the vaccines could be made generic, but steps and efforts could be taken on part of WHO, COVAX, the global facility, and also the individual government, so that even the masses who do not have equitable access to the vaccination gets the best vaccination facilities. So that was about the developments that we have covered in Down to Earth. As we said, this edition focused on few major aspects: vaccination apartheid, the forest fires in Nepal were some of the major issues that we have discussed, and definitely the Arctic lightning stroke, another important topic, and the seven institutes that develop vaccination in India and under which ministry they lie. The last table that we discussed is very important. So we would be covering many more interesting facts and topics from Down to Earth. It comes every fortnightly. So stay tuned for updated information from our side. Have a wonderful day ahead.